So, Joe Robertson, MP, welcome to the Isle of Wight Observer offices again. And it's nice to see you, having won your election about 4:30 the other morning. And we did have a quick chat to you then, but have you had a chance to sort of get your feet on the ground?
Yeah, certainly on the ground on the island. Yeah, I go up to Westminster tomorrow, but locally, yeah, already been getting stuck in.
Yeah, and Richard has been called up to, we were hoping to get both of you together tomorrow, but Richard's been called up to Westminster already, so they're a bit ahead of you.
Yeah, there are two reasons you go up to Westminster. Obviously, one is the parliamentary induction through the House of Commons, and the other is party induction. My parliamentary and party induction are both tomorrow, so maybe Richard's on a different
You've
timetable.
got fewer new MPs, I would.
That's a true statement of fact, Carol. I can't disagree with that.
How many new ones are there?
I think about 18 new Conservative MPs.
All right. So you'll be having a rather different induction than Richard will.
Yes, yeah, certainly in terms of numbers, that's true. Yeah.
And you'll have lots of, well, not lots of, but you'll have more experienced people to learn from, a higher proportion of experienced people to learn from. So
I suppose that's right. There are roughly sort of 18 to 20 new Conservative MPs, and obviously there are about 100 existing MPs. Yeah, so I don't know how the proportion is probably actually few new MPs as well as overall numbers. Yeah.
So how's your secret weapon doing?
What's my secret weapon, Carol?
Your son. Vote for my daddy.
Vote for my daddy. Yeah, he's doing very well. In fact, you know what? We started taking posters down, obviously, on Friday, and he said, "Oh, when's the next election? I want to say vote for daddy." And then when I told him he'd almost be twice as old as he is now, and he's now sort of forgotten about that as his list of priorities.
And how long have you been knocking on doors since you were?
I was 17 when I first started knocking on doors. We had a Liberal Democrat MP, and Andrew Turner was running for his second time. And I was still at school then, and I phoned up the Conservative Association, and I've been knocking on doors ever since, so 23 years.
So, and I think Andrew returned the favour, didn't he?
He did return the favour, yeah, very much so. Yeah, very much returned the favour. So we started knocking on doors for this campaign in around September, October last year. And Andrew was first up with his hand in the air, dusting down the canvas sheets. So he's been running canvas balls for us for 9 months.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Have you spoken to Richard? Because I know you've both said that you want to work together and you want to be an effective team island. Have you spoken to Richard yet?
Yeah, so we congratulated each other on the night, and then about 3 hours later we did a joint radio interview. So we saw each other then and exchanged numbers. We on the council have always emailed each other, and we have a perfectly good working relationship. So we now have each other's numbers. So yeah, and I think the island has delivered its result. It's incumbent on us to find a way of making it work, and I'm not concerned about that. I think we will find a way of making it work.
That's good news. And are you having a party at all?
There will be a party at some point, but I think you need to get the job underway first. So it's not a party in weeks or even maybe a few months' time.
So day 3 of being MP for Isle of Wight East. What have you been up to?
So yesterday, my first sort of constituency visit, I suppose, was a visit to the Royal Victoria Yacht Club for a Disabilities Open Day.
Oh,
so
right.
they do it every year. They've been doing it for decades, I think. They have an open day for different groups.
That's sailability.
Sailability is part of it.
Yeah,
part of it. So I went along to that to meet the different groups and people who've been invited. We then went out on a boat trip, whereupon it rained very heavily. We got absolutely soaking.
Echoes of Rishi Sunak.
Well, thankfully the cameras weren't on me.
So, what's your first priority? You want to hit the ground running. What's your first priority for the island?
Yeah, that's a really difficult question to answer because there are just so many. But dealing with a very discrete, very local issue, I think ferries.
Yeah.
I've been using ferries my whole life, and I just feel in the last 4 or 5 years there's been a real turning point. There's now a groundswell of opinion across the whole island that enough is enough. Yeah. Pricing, service, timetables and reliability. So I've already been on national media earlier today talking about the ferries. That's clearly my number one priority. We now need to engage with the government, Labour government. I always said I'd engage with Conservative or Labour, and Richard and I need to do it together. And we need to work with various groups and residents and councillors actually to get the government to step in and take action.
Excellent. Second priority?
Second priority, again, I wouldn't necessarily put them in rank order, but to say maybe a broader priority that's less discreet than that is promoting business and jobs and making young islanders and working age islanders feel they've got a future here. We know the island's a brilliant place to retire to, and so it should be, but it needs to also be a good place for people to build a career.
5-year plan?
5-year plan, I mean that is at least a 5-year plan and more, because it's so multivarious. It includes affordable housing and everything else. But another big part of a 5-year plan is dealing with health and social care. Governments of different colours and coalitions have not managed to deal with this in the last 30 years. Labour now have a big mandate, and I think we need to work cross-party to try and finally sort out social care funding nationally and then deliver it better locally.
So have you had any thoughts about where will your office be? Will it be in Westminster or will it be on the island?
No, on the island, owns the island, and therefore including main office, if you like. And I can confirm it will be in the East Wight constituency, but exactly where I'm not sure yet.
And what sort of thing are you looking for? A high street presence or something in an office?
No, not yet, but not shop window presence, I don't think, but certainly accessible, so people can come and find me easily.
Yeah. And where are you staying in London when you get up there tomorrow?
That's a very good question. I very deliberately didn't want to book anything or make plans to jinx an election result, and I took nothing for granted anyway. I didn't become MP until the count was done and I was elected. So I am fortunate to have had an offer from a cousin, and he says I can stay for a short while. We're now going to work out what short means. And then obviously we'll go through the process of finding rental accommodation.
Where do you think the Tory party is going to go now? It's had a thrashing. Who should be the next leader? What do you think? What direction do you think the Tory party should take?
So I think it needs to take a little bit of time to reflect. I don't think there should be a knee-jerk reaction. I'd like to see Rishi Sunak stay for a short period in order to allow the party to have a conversation. I personally feel that the reason the party lost the election wasn't so much that the policies were wrong, but they weren't executed. That for one reason or another, the then government, was unable to deliver on its promises, and too much infighting. I mean, people do not vote for parties that are divided and arguing amongst themselves. And in the end, it doesn't really matter what the arguments are. The fact a party is arguing is not good enough for voters. So end of the arguments, uniting, coming together, and trying not to have some sort of phony policy war, which I don't actually think really existed in the first place. And I think for me, that Labour have surprisingly few policies, because I don't think there's a huge policy debate out there. As a Conservative, I feel the policies were good. We failed to execute them. That was the problem. So
do you have a choice for leader? I know they've got to declare, but people are jostling, aren't they?
Yeah, no, I genuinely would like to see the runners and riders before making a decision. I've got a few thoughts. I don't particularly want to share them before I see who's actually declared. But for me, I would say to any candidate, it's about uniting the party and not having a bloodbath sectarian argument.
So is there a place for Nigel Farage? That seems to be a big debate at the moment.
I mean, I genuinely don't think Nigel Farage has any interest in joining the Conservative Party. I think Nigel Farage is very much a one-man show, capable in the way he speaks. I think for Nigel Farage, it's about him, and the Reform Party was sort of built for him to step in, and he did. I think he has no interest. I don't think we should be extending an invitation, but he's made it plainly obvious he's not interested. I think it's very obvious.
Why do you think that you won in the East, and yet the sitting MP didn't win in the West? What's your assessment of what went wrong?
I suppose there were different political factors, weren't there? I mean, I hadn't sort of given huge amount of thought to what went wrong for us in the West, not least of all, it's not my constituency. But certainly I ran a highly localised campaign because I think that's what voters on the island ultimately want to be sure is that you are going to put the island first, and party politics is not the main thing that sort of pops up in your head every 2 minutes. So that's not to say that wasn't working in the way, but that I think that's how I won the East, and people felt, and I hope they did, and they should be right feeling this, that Joe will prioritise the island first.
Good. Well, we look forward to seeing you turn that dream into reality and fighting for the island. And thanks for coming in, Joe.
Thank you. Thanks, Carol.